Welcome in, Slayers. While you're busy in Sanctuary, here's a dose of the latest Diablo 4 news. I'm also going to be talking to Kahlief Adams, a.k.a. Spawn on Me, in just a moment. We're going to be talking about, is the endgame worth it? Why are we grinding past level 50? Why do you go there in the first place? All of that and more. But a quick recap of the Diablo news, and I'll go into more detail later because we do have our guest waiting in the wings. And those here live on Twitch chat, let me know if anything's going wrong technically, since we're doing it live. But yeah, today, if you didn't catch it, there was a really big patch. We're going to be going over what that is, but like in a recap, there's a lot of like balance stuff and fixes, a lot of class buffs and balances. Blizzard recognizes in that basic skills kind of don't feel impactful enough. And they hope that they can, smooth things out with this. But if you want to know specifics about class stuff, there's a lot of that in there. But bigger than that, there's a bunch of things like players can now teleport to nightmare dungeons directly. You can significantly increase your experience when you get in those nightmare dungeons. That's just that they significantly increased it. Significantly increased the experience gained from killing monsters. Helltide chests now provide substantially more bonus experience when they are opened. And then the Helltide roaming bosses will now more consistently drop higher quality loot. And by the way, if anybody out there knows what that little bug boss that is roaming around is supposed to drop, I don't know if it was broken and that's what this is, but I've never gotten good loot from that that little dungus is what I call him. It's a dung beetle boss or something. There's significantly increased rewards as well. For completing individual whispers across the board. And then they fixed that weekly cash issue where they had a level requirement of about 80 if you're in World Tier 4. So there's a bunch, beyond that. And there's talk as well, of course, of the ultra rare unique stuff. Maybe we'll get into that with Kahlief, but I've got a rundown of, again, there's these ultra rare uniques out there that everybody now wants. Now that we're confirming that they're in the game, Blizzard's lead class designer confirmed this stuff, and they can drop from level 85 plus enemies. But more on that later. Let me see if Kahlief is waiting in the wings. I'm going to send him a Twitch guest star invite. So let me get up my Twitch guest star. Well, we're good. Everything's working now. So yeah, thanks everybody in chat for your patience again. Once again, welcome. Kahlief, Spawn on Me, thanks for coming through and doing, my first little Diablo podcast here.
Fam, I'm so excited to be doing this with you. I can hear every time I see you on the stream, you have this excitement about Diablo, and you're having fun, and it makes me excited. I mean, when you're not talking about item management, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
You telling me you're not managing items?
Oh, I mean, no. I'm just saying that I share your pain in the way that the item management is currently set up. So I think that there's lots of conversations to be had about all that. But I'm excited to be on your first initial Diablo cast. This is going to be super fun to be able to rock about this and talk about our builds and how we are wrecking everything in sight. It's great.
Yep. And because I'm a filler, I'm like, I have to center him out, man.
I believe
center the cam out a little bit more here, and then we'll be ready to go.
I love it. I love it.
So yeah, there's a lot of topics to talk about. I think we should establish first. And by the way, do you want me to call you Kah, Kahlief, Spawn? What do you prefer for the show?
Yeah, Kah's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay, call him Kah. But we should establish that you are now level 70 something. Is that right?
Yeah, I think what am I, 72 now? It's like creeping up on 73. I'm looking at that last little bit on my pit bar to see if I can get there before the end of the night. It's one of those weird things too, where I think you're looking at your progress every time you roll into a game, and you're just like, all right, I can see where I'm at. I can see how much I have to do in my daily chores. Can I get to that next level before the end of the night, before I have to go to sleep? It's a really interesting layer of how we're, how I am thinking about playing this game and how I'm kind of interacting with it. So yeah, 72. I just hit 72 like last night. So it's been moving around now. Now I'm not getting beat up in tier 4 like I was when I was 65 running around on tier 4 getting my
because you're technically, it's like you're below level when you're at 65 or 70 or whatever. I think it is 73 is exactly the number that you want to hit. You can feel it for sure. I am now at level 80, so we're not too far away in terms of how much we've been grinding. So wanted to establish that when we're going to talk about the end game and like why do we do this and all that. But before we get to it, one more thing to establish is like our quick, very fast, like Diablo history. For me, I spent all my, gaming come up playing Diablos, but I actually never got like super deep. And so I certainly played them. I played Diablo 1, I played Diablo 2, I played 3, but I never went super deep like true Diablo fans. But since then, I've now dedicated my life to playing games, and so, which is funny to say it that way, but meaning it is now my full-time job, and because I like to go deep on this stuff. So Diablo 4, I finally got a chance. So that's newer for me in the Diablo series, but I've played many games from Division to Destiny, etc., where I've done that and gone deep. But what's your Diablo history in terms of like grind loot games like this? What do you normally do?
Diablo 3 was my first kind of like jump into the pool, but I didn't stick with Diablo 3. I felt like when I got into that game, I was probably too late to the party in that way. Like, I feel like some games that you can kind of start that journey, I started with, not started with, but played Destiny 2, Division, so many of those games where you're grinding through and trying to find loot and going through that process of continually getting your character better and doing that min-maxing on your stat stuff. So 3 was the first one that I started on. And then 4 has just been, from the beginning has sunken its teeth into me, and I can't stop playing it. It is now my go-to-bed game. I usually call those my go-to-bed games, the things I'm playing right before I go to sleep.
That's what
either trying to de-stress or raise my stress levels because I don't care about my health.
Yeah.
Before I go to sleep, but it winds up being this is the thing that I'm playing every night at this point. And I didn't expect it to be that way. I did expect it to be something where I would kind of play around with it, mess around with the systems, and see if I really liked it because the hype was really, really big. But now that I'm in it, I can't stop thinking about what am I going to do next and what's the next layer of content I'm going to poke at. And now that I'm at tier 4 levels where I can do things comfortably, now I'm just like, how do I maximize what I'm trying to do with the specific build that I have now? And it's just been so good. It's been so fantastic.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a perfect segue because that for me is an important topic. Diablo 4 blew up, from a marketing perspective, one of the biggest games in the world. Everybody was playing Diablo when it came out. I don't know how many remain playing, but the true grind is what has got you now, the loot grind, the build grind. I don't want to talk about that aspect, but like for starters, there's that nuance of like, well, a lot of people play for the campaign and they also play because everybody was playing. So maybe on that first base level, how would you sort of mini review, like, before we get into the why we're still playing?
Yeah.
How did Diablo shape up for you in terms of that first big golden path piece?
It was really fantastic. I think it just doubles down on the thing that a lot of us kind of going to this game knowing was that this Blizzard team, this Diablo team is just really, they have cut their teeth in so many different ways to get to this game that they have now built. And all of the things that we were thinking about as the initial kind of thrust into this new version of this Diablo world, they have nailed it, from the visuals to the story and the campaign, which was really well done and kind of leaves you in a good spot to think about what the next kind of part of this, long adventure is going to wind up being. They just landed it in so many different ways. Like, I didn't think that I would be not sympathetic to Lilith, but to think that she is such an interesting and cool character. Because most times in a game like this, the story doesn't matter that much at all. It's something that you kind of get through to get to the end pieces that you want to go to. But the way they set up this kind of, layered conversation about this underworld that you're in and all these characters that you now kind of care about, with this all being surrounded with this really like amazing baddie in Lilith, it just makes all of this super, super cool to kind of like jump in it as a, air quotes, new player and feel like this is a thing that I want to see more of. And I want to see them dig into more of it and how they build the rest of it out.
Yeah. So I should disclose that because I was like, I'm definitely going to play this, on multiple characters. And I just got to get to the end game for sort of that. Ironically, for this part, I was like, well, I actually just didn't, because I'm streaming at the same time, didn't get to catch all of the story. But what I did was dope. The cutscenes were dope.
Yeah.
But, maybe being more focused on that first World Tier 1, World Tier 2, how just, let's call it, the average player might play it. To me, it was just still Diablo. you know, and I'd be talking to like Diablo 4 or sorry, Diablo 3 players and Immortal players, and they were like talking about a lot of the nuances, and I'm like, it's just Diablo, man.
Yeah,
you know, so I didn't notice as much like, well, you know, Arclash is just the same meta, and that's what it was before. And there was little things that I was like, dude, there's so many builds. It's so dope. And again, I've played Diablo, so I was just excited with the polish, the dark tone of it. I did like the big map, but the horse sucks. It's unfortunate. It feels like they either just struggled with the technology, or it almost feels like they were struggling with the decision, and then they added it in anyway for like the map size or something. Do you feel like did the horse? I mean, it does its job, but it's not like awesome.
There are moments when the horse feels it's a Goldilocks kind of thing. It feels just right sometimes, and then sometimes it just feels super wrong and doesn't do what I think it needs to do. Like the
you get caught on like a plant. You're like, well.
It's funny. A friend of mine was like, "Man, this is the worst thoroughbred I've ever seen in my life. Has no stamina at all."
That's like, a good point. I never heard it quite put that way, but I'm like, yeah, this is a horse of hell, and it's the worst like stamina. I don't know how many packs of cigarettes this thing's going through a day.
This thing is definitely smoking at least a couple of Marlboros before you get it out of the stable, because it doesn't move. It moves, but it doesn't move long enough to get you out of trouble. I don't necessarily know if I like the mechanic where you can kind of, you know, hit the spurs on the horse and it goes a little bit faster to get through mobs of enemies, because then when it would be fine if you didn't feel like you got caught on terrain as much as you do on the horse, which is a weird thing for the horse to do.
Little corners, man.
I'm like, those little corners are the worst. I'm like, you can jump that horse, but again, you can't jump because you've been smoking 3 packs a day.
So, exactly. So we agree. Horse needs work. I think everybody does. But in meaning this big new world, it kind of stood out to me as like everybody wants a mount in a Blizzard game. And I get it. And they want to sell it in the store. And that's a different conversation. But I was like, dude, just give me like a per class move faster function or something that doesn't break the game. That if the horse doesn't work as well, like, well, I'm already a bear, but you know, you get the idea. Maybe I could run faster for a temporary amount of time and it would work better or something. But putting all that aside, I enjoyed exploring all the different areas for the visual aspects. That really felt good to me. So yeah, I mean, to me, as a sort of a full package Diablo game, I'm like, it's more Diablo. It didn't surprise me, but the polish and the tone did. And then just like having not played Diablo in a while, like the build variety, did you feel, you know, similarly, you know, in terms of those points?
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily I'd gotten a chance to check out some of the beta content before getting into the full retail game. And I think that helped a lot, because as a person who, you know, and it was, you know, it was kind of small in that respect where you really only got a couple of different archetypes to play around with. So you really didn't get a chance to see the full gamut of stuff that you wanted to play. But I think for me, as a person who started off as a rogue player and then moved over to a barbarian player, it wind up kind of feeding into that version of not only the power fantasy parts of what I wanted to do in this game, but it also felt like I could see a good path, not only for potential PvP stuff, but also how was I going to play in a group? And that was the thing that I really cared about, was if I get into a group and I want to be useful and I want to feel like I'm not only just having to kill stuff, but I can buff and debuff stuff and do all that. That was the reason why I wound up going with a barbarian, because it just felt like I could do a lot of different things in that class that would be helpful to a team and to be able to run a lot of solo content. So I think that was the kind of going into that thing. And then, you know, I know we'll probably touch a little bit about like builds and, you know, building towards the OP, you know, meta builds versus not. But I think it really came to pass of like, this is the player that I want to play as in this role, knowing that I'm probably not going to roll another character. I'm not one of those like roll multiple, because I just don't have time to do it. But
yeah, maybe without getting into like, should you play meta or not? That's a really great point to make here, is that I think a lot of people that have been playing a lot of different grind games, you know, and or like me, came back to Diablo, like forgot. They really are into this penalty of like, you are role playing the class you chose, which kind of has annoyed me in a lot of recent modern games. I'm like, dude, I want to have fun. I got other games to play. Zelda's unfinished. So I went through a period of time where I'm like, oof, man, like it could be a little steep and I don't have enough gold. But then I started to figure out, okay, I'm playing a ton. Like I feel like I can still switch some things, but I know as you get later in the game, it can be very grindy and penalizing. Like if you want to redo your Paragon board, it's like you got to go out and grind gold. But so how do you feel about getting locked into those choices, and therefore, again, without maybe going into whether or not you should do this, like some people are like, I'm just going to copy that OP build that somebody made now, because if I make my own thing, it's going to feel penalizing maybe. How do you feel about that?
It's a hard balance. And I think, you know, for folks who are listening to the show and kind of coming to, you know, this potentially being their first Diablo in a bigger sense, my advice to y'all is to say, play it the way you want to play it. Like, there is a layer of, yes, you can go on every YouTube video and build towards whatever those builds were going to be. So like early on, the build that I should have played, air quotes if you're listening in, I'm doing air quotes if you're listening in audio form, is the whirlwind barbarian kind of class. You're spinning around with your axes or your swords in a circle and you're kind of demolishing mobs and doing that. That move is boring. Like it's a boring move as a actual thing to use. It doesn't do anything visually exciting to me. It feels really boring in terms of the way you interact with the game. So my build is around how much bleed I can do and how much damage I can get into a move called Upheaval, which is basically one where you're kind of scraping the ground and throwing rocks at people and
shovel scoop.
AOE. Yeah, you're doing this AOE kind of blast at people. That to me feels so much more interesting visually,
like your
and as a gameplay. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I feel like a barbarian when I'm doing it, and that feels cool.
I think you're illustrating though that's interesting, because to you Whirlwind is boring. To others, they like it because it fit their fantasy. And you know, I'm speculating on that. I haven't gone into like the barbarian meta and seen what people hate and love, but to that point, that's what I will say. Probably because I ended up spending so much time grinding and getting into really fully building out the power and the character. Yeah, I started to really enjoy the fact that like, hey, this is you. You're locked into what you're doing right now, and I've been experimenting with that a ton, and it has been very fulfilling to sort of like, for me personally, I'm like, I don't know the exacts of the OP Druid builds. I know about them, but it's just interesting to sort of arrive at like who I am in Diablo 4, and that's what it was predicated on, I think, and all RPG games at their heart is intending to be more that. Like when you play Elden Ring, it's like there are so many paths to chase, and like what are you playing with and how? And like Diablo fills that fantasy, but it is pretty, you're very invested in what you choose to do.
And I'll add this one thing. I think the thing that is causing me a smidgen of kind of like frustration is not necessarily the how you should build versus the kind of meta of the space. It feels like currently a lot of the items that I get in terms of the aspects that I see are very much towards a very specific
like they ability. Want you to go a certain direction,
right? Like I'm not seeing a ton of stuff for Upheaval or a lot of stuff around or bleed, or maybe it's, you know, again, like I'm not,
you might just be unlucky
drops. Yeah, I could just be unlucky and not seeing some of the stuff. Like I'm sure that there's going to be something that I magically come across at some point in the next 10 years that I'm playing this game that's going to be a thing that's going to be like, holy crap, this is the one piece of thing that is going to make my build the most fun towards the thing that I am building towards.
Right.
I think,
so,
you know, it's always the RNG of it at some point.
Absolutely. That, again, you've set me up for a perfect segue. So let's, before we get deep into that stuff, let's talk about I would say getting over the hump of like, well, I'm beating the game and then what? And some people, if you're a Diablo player, you already know then what. You're like, you were grinding world tiers and getting higher level. Endgame begins at level 50 with a Paragon tree is what it's called, a massive board of points and nodes of big point upgrades. Like let's say your crit gets a 25% spike of, but you got to path your way to these things and then you start combining. So it's really, it looks super complex, but it's cool. But that starts at level 50 and it's point by point grind. But then there's a bunch of like world tiers, uniques, a couple other things. So my point here is you do some side quests, you beat the campaign, you get your horse, you're feeling it, and you're like, now what? So for us, why do we keep going? Like, why is that not enough? And sincerely, what draws you forward past that level 50? Did getting to level 50 draw you there, and for what reason? But also what draws you past it?
I was trying to run. I to a certain extent, I might have done some of the story a disservice, right? Like and I feel
Same.
like
I mean,
this is the thing. I think this is the
I'll
thing
play
that
it
a lot of
again.
folks who play these kinds of games do too. Is like we are so much we need to get to the level of whatever that top level is to get to see what that end game content is going to wind up being. Sometimes you kind of skip past some stuff that might have been cool to see. I have done that. I raised my hand specifically for that kind of stuff. But getting to 50 was the main thing because weirdly, a lot of folks who I was playing around and with would already kind of like getting to 50 faster than me. So that was a peer pressure layer of it to be fully honest about that was like folks are getting to end game faster than I expected. And I wanted to be, to play with my friends and play with some of those people to be able to do some of that stuff. But then when I got a chance to kind of like poke at that end tree where you start to get your ultimates and see the damage that you can do with that, with those powers, and then seeing how the initial conversation about the Paragon boards kind of came to bear, which I think Blizzard could have done a much better job in terms of doing tutorials for the Paragon board stuff. I think as well as they have done in the way that they've kind of come across with some of the stuff, they could have done a better job of this of talking about exactly why you want to path a certain way and do some of that stuff
Right.
instead of that. Some of that always gets kind of left off to content creators to kind of do some of that tutorialization for you.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
am I hearing that there was a little like fear of missing out? Like you need to at least
Oh,
get
for
there to start. That was a
sure.
big start of it. Is like everybody else is getting past 50.
Yeah.
But was it
Yeah.
more that, or you wanted the Paragon board points?
I needed to. It was the FOMO. The
It
FOMO
was.
because
That's
I didn't
perfect
really.
though.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Because I didn't understand the board yet. Like I literally tweeted about it like 2 days
It
ago. I was
looks
like,
nuts when you first see it. You're like,
oh, it looks like I have to respec half of my board because I messed up because I basically was filling it out in a way where one, I forgot that that's a limited resource in terms of your Paragon
yeah,
points. And I was trying to fill out my board like I was playing Pekino or something. Like I was
yeah,
playing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's
totally.
so I was like, oh, all these nodes are just not used. I'm like not getting the best out of my stuff. And then I redid it and I was like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense now. So it was the driving force was FOMO initially, and now getting a chance to be at a certain level where I can see how some of those powers are now kind of synergizing with the build that I want, and then going into a room and decimating a whole bunch of enemies and being like, just standing there and tanking a whole bunch
Yeah,
of stuff. Like it feels great now that I can be able to do that. So it's a
yeah.
lot of that.
Okay. And maybe to quickly establish too, did you tend to play a lot of the games solo or in a group?
Like 99% of it has been solo so far.
I thought you were going to say in a group for a sec.
Nope.
So it
I've
was
just
solo,
started playing with a group.
surrounded by seeing just other people that you know are playing. So, but that's an important aspect, I think. If it wasn't like you were playing with a specific group of 2 or 3 people, and then you're like, man, they're going, I'm going with them. It's seeing everybody who's gaming Diablo 4 around you. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm seeing the same thing. Diablo hit critical mass.
Yeah.
And so people are continuing to go. Yeah, I wish we had numbers on like how many people are still playing.
They've got
definitely
they must
seems like
have
a
some
lot.
of those stats at some point to be able to like. Did they drop any of like community stat stuff yet?
I'm going to cover it in the news section here, but
yes.
but not that. We know you knew this probably that it's the fastest selling Blizzard game. So they announced that it was the fastest selling Blizzard game, so it sold roughly, we know, about 4 million copies probably or more. We don't know more beyond that because that was based on WoW Shadowlands. So anyway, we don't know how many people play, but it sure seems like a lot. But anyway, I think that was important details. So another one would be, why do you feel like you want to keep going? Is it that FOMO part still? You're like, I got to still see what everybody else is seeing, or now are you getting? Is it the build? Is it the uniques? What is it that keeps drawing you forward?
It's less the FOMO now. Like I'm pretty comparable with most of my peers in terms of where they're at. Like the gap between where we are in level doesn't feel that different yet in terms of, because you're in the 80s. I'm just starting into my 70s, not age level. But
Great.
But now,
just in case you're just listening, like you said,
just in case you're like, oh my god, this old man plays Diablo. It's fantastic. Gaming's for everybody.
Approaching my 70s.
Oh my god, this barbarian knees. Anyway, but it winds up being now where I'm seeing small things within not only the stat progression, I think the cool part about where it is now is all of the systems that are in the game are starting to make sense now. I don't think they made as much sense in the beginning stages of when I started to play. But now when I'm thinking about, oh, I got this really cool unique. What does this mean for the way I want to play? Oh, here are the statistics that I actually want to dump points in and want to level up a piece of gear towards. I think those are the things now I'm seeing as the layers that are giving me that kind of like hit, that
Yeah, the
dopamine
build
hit that's
crafting
like,
hook.
oh yeah, like yeah, exactly. Like I have this stuff that's moving around in my build, and I'm seeing things now where, and I think you can probably attest to this too. I think at a certain part when you start to get past the initial part of the main game, you start to roll into end game stuff. You become a gear snob in a way that is unreasonable. And I think that that part of it too is really interesting because you're looking at really small details of numbers and trying to min max those pieces to say like, okay, if I boost this, what does that do to
Yeah.
my aspect? Or if I remove this thing from a piece of gear and put it on another piece of gear, what does that do for the potential thing that I want to do? I mean, at the end of the day, it's really because we want to go into a room, look at it, laugh at all the enemies in it, and then kill them all. But it's like, how do you do it in the kind of most efficient way possible? Winds up being a lot of that conversation in my own mind while I'm playing.
Definitely. Yeah. And so for me, that was a lot of it, probably less FOMO,
Yeah.
but certainly there was some of it. But I was full in because I knew, one, it's going to be a big game. It's just part of what I'm doing on Twitch and content creation. I was like, I got to be a part of it. But being a Division player, a Destiny player, an Anthem player briefly, and I like games where you're putting together builds and stuff, but I don't go, like, I'm not a guy who gets like super nuts with OP builds. If I get lucky, cool. But I just like to, yeah, create my own thing and that chase. So what happened to me in Diablo 4 is certainly I had to get to the Paragon board. I knew at level 50, the tab was sitting there. So that was it. I'm like, I have to unlock this and experience the Paragon board. Once I did, and it took a while. In fact, I would actually say till it was about where the level you're at, even the early 70s, which is funny because it doesn't seem that it's only, you're only 6-7 levels behind me.
Yeah.
But you multiply that times 4 Paragon points at least. Yeah. And that adds up quick, right? So you're talking 40 Paragon points or whatever. So hitting those nodes, it was like ding, ding. I was like, oh man, more earth power. I'm a druid, by the way. More crit, well, it wasn't crit, but more nature magic power, which, that's everything I'm using. And I got very excited to get these big nodes of power. So that got me. And then, of course, like getting my aspects right. Definitely the type of player that I like going into these nightmare dungeons. And I like the feeling of stomping the enemies once I achieve that moment. But more than anything, I want to die in the dungeon. I want to hit the level and be sort of upset. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And take a moment, but not in a way that I can't fix it. Take that moment, go back. And I found myself, I'm like, okay, I got, my stash is full. I got everything saved because I want access to everything I've earned, And I'm like, okay, let's see. This is more earth crit when I use storm. Okay, great. I'm going to use this when I'm fortified. And it just, you spend so much time with it. And it seems completely overwhelming at first, unless you play these games day and night for the last decade. It's because some of those players out there I know listening or watching are like, yeah, I play ARPGs all the time. Don't be a baby. It's a lot of stats, but drew me in big time of like, oh man, I just fixed this. I'm like, I think that one change just was like build changing. And you get this euphoria over it. I mean, I don't know if you feel that way when you're making the builds, but that's a big part of why I'm still playing for both the Paragon points and getting the right gear.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm 1,000% there. Like, I think the thing that lit that light bulb for me was the first time I beat a butcher.
Yeah,
and I think that was the moment because I had gotten it. And again, for folks who are new to the game, it's a random
fresh meat.
Yeah, like spawns into wherever you're at, usually in a dungeon, and just usually wrecks your face. I got a butcher when I was like level 10. And that butcher, I was like, oh, this thing is just a bigger version of these other things. And that thing just ate my face.
Yeah. And it hooks you when you try to run away is the best part.
It was the worst. I was like, what? It's like, this is a thing. They have to be kidding. Like, this is a joke that they put this enemy in here this early in the game just to troll me. Now I can stand toe to toe with the butcher and do some work. And it feels good because of all of the things that I did throughout that path to get to where I'm at currently, from changing and respecking stuff and putting aspects on certain things and playing towards this idea of what I want that character to be, that now I can usually fight a butcher and be good and you not have to worry about it. You can still play smart.
It's a good test.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, because it changes the way you think about not only the build aspect that does hit that euphoria.
Yeah, that's 1v1.
But yeah, you're like, it is literally the 1v1 me, bro, of the game, right?
It is, yeah.
It's kind of cool to be able to have those instantaneous, like, all right, this is like a stat check. This is like one of those things like, did you build this right so you can fight this thing? And when you do it and it feels good and you beat it, then it just feels amazing to be able to like, oh, I understood what the systems were.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. You know, I think a lot of people wonder, like, why you keep grinding these games. Why don't you go back and finish Zelda? And like, I never, God, that game's going to take me forever. But like, why not? And you're like, because you get invested and studied on like what you're building as an RPG character, I think. And you get that reward of you're like, oh man, I just added like 10% crit chance and I'm seeing it. The numbers look more orange. I'm excited, you know? And that is, I think if you're going to get into Diablo 4, chances are you don't have to get super hardcore about it. Yeah. But even on a light level, you start to be like, man, that could change what I'm doing. And you try it and it does. And you get super excited because you built something.
Yep. And I've totally changed a lot of stuff too. Like I was, my character at first was a steel grasp character. So you throw out these chains, and the best thing about that is there's a part of that tree that as soon as you hit stuff and it pulls it back kind of towards you, because barbarian's a kind of close range fighter, it usually has vulnerable on it at that point. So they can take more damage at that point. I started playing that, and then I saw that when I was playing with friends, I was actually messing up the ability for them to do certain things because I was pulling those enemies out of fights where they could be best kind of equipped to handle some of those enemies. So like I had a rogue that did some CC, pulled all those characters together, and me using my grasp would pull them out of the CC by accident because that's the way I've been playing solo. So I wound up changing that so I could wind up being more of a kind of jack of better trades in that way. So it winds up changing the way you think about it.
Okay. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. You don't have to. Do you have a few more?
I got time.
Okay, because I want to take off the rose tinted glasses because obviously we're hooked. Yeah. Let's take a moment and say, like, how is the end game though? It's one thing I've described Diablo 4 as you're going to Vegas, you're playing the slots. As soon as you get in the door, it's all lights and it's just, ding, 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 ding. There's so much going on. There's so much loot. The gold's dropping at your feet. And they do a really good job, I think, with that feeling of progression. And it even continues after 50. It's just like you keep getting stuff. You start to hit a point where you start getting a lot of the stuff that you're not familiar with. You want those Paragon points, but they're harder to get. And you're playing what? Probably a lot of dungeons, Nightmare dungeons, Hell Tides, maybe Legion events. What do you think? What are the endgame activities to you that you're playing? And how do you feel about the endgame? Are you fine? Like you're good to go forward? You don't have any sort of like, man, I feel like I'm going to get burnt out, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think the thing that I'm landing on right now is it is a slog right now, to be honest. Like I think the things that I am hoping to get more connected to, one, feel like you need to play with more people. So it feels like, if you're doing high level nightmare dungeons, you don't really want to do that stuff solo. Because it just feels like, one, you're going to die a lot. You don't want to have to spend your money to repair all your stuff to be able to do that stuff. And in a weird way, like nightmare dungeons feel like icing on top of a cake. You're like, you want to share that stuff with other people because it's a resource that you have to build. You can find them when you get into dungeons and stuff like that with drops. But it feels like when I have sigils that I want to use to go into a nightmare dungeon, and I know you're going to talk about this, talk about some of the some of the changes for that, but I think that ability now to say like, there's going to be some potentially good loot here, there's going to be some decent XP here, I want to hold that stuff and not run it solo. So that's a weird thing that's in that mix for me there. I constantly am just missing the world bosses because I'm sleeping.
Yeah, you get.
I'm sleeping, and I'm like, I'm not gonna wake up just for a world boss.
There's probably one happening right now. By the way, there's usually one between like 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time.
There's supposed to be one around like 5 tonight, but and I'll be up for that one. That's that one I'll catch. But I think it's that stuff too, where it's like I don't want that aspect of the game to be something so constant that it loses its flair and its flavor.
No.
But it does feel like a thing that if you are not on at the right time in the right moment, you are missing a really important thing to rebuild, or to have the resources that you get from a fight like that to be able to continue to press through Endgame in a way that feels good. The Legion
Hmm.
events don't feel fun at all. They're not great at all. They don't feel fun
Thank
because
you.
everybody bum rushes through those things super fast. You're not even
They need
hitting
to
stuff at some
buff
point.
it.
It needs to be harder. Like, it needs to
Yeah.
be a harder event
It
to be able to do.
exactly. Yeah, it feels like it was like it's cool early game, and the first time you experience it
Yeah.
with a crowd, you're like, oh, neat. There's other people, and you're stomping all these enemies, and then you're like, this is just boring now. I don't want to do it, but I want the XP, so I'm a victim of the grind. But
It's
you
a
go,
means to an end kind of thing, which
yeah,
I don't think was what they were hoping for when Blizzard decided to put this part into
yeah,
the game. I do think it's a really smart thing to, if you can catch it on time. If you, and this is pro tip, if you're moving from a world tier that is above your punching weight, it is a fantastic way to get some gear from a level that is above you, is to jump into those, because you're not having to do a lot. You can kind of run with the mob, and the mob will kill things for you, and then you get the rewards at the end to kind of get your
yeah,
character up to a higher level. But for an end game activity, that now, thinking about me being at level 72, 73, and having to go to level 100, that's a lot of levels that have to go through with, this is the main kind of content that I'm going to
right,
do. And that feels rough right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, it's almost purely I keep playing because of the build and power interest. The Paragon board is probably the biggest one for me.
Mm.
Seeing the nodes that I want to get to is enough to be like, that's a big bump, and it's, you really feel it when you hit those nodes. So it's that, but of course, uniques alongside good aspect drops, but also the affixes and or perks, if you want to call them that, on your gear. So like, I really need a new pair of pants in the game. I need a better set of gloves, and like I'm looking for whatever. I'm looking for cooldown and crit, or I'm looking for earth crit damage plus plus crit strike on this, and like that's a standard loot grind, but it does feel really good and meaningful when you get those rolls. You can roll them yourself, but it's hard to roll all 4 of those perks perfectly, or you can only roll 1 at a time, but you get the point. It's hard to get a god roll type set. Yeah. And it's really rewarding when you see something, but it is exhausting going through the gear. I'll say that. I don't want to go off on that tangent yet. That might be another show. As gear management is a big thing in my life in these games, but just getting that stuff is cool. And then what I would share is I was getting like a little burnout of like, I'm doing dungeons over and over, and they're nightmare dungeons. I've pretty much played them, but they're still pretty cool. I'm in the honeymoon phase of like, wow, there's a lot of poison and lightning, and this is exploding, and these little like twists, that they do on the dungeons to mix them up, right? Like, so if you haven't played them and you're out there watching and listening, like sometimes they add it's called a blood blister, and it's like after the enemy dies, this huge blister will explode in their place, and you have to kill it, or it's going to do a huge area of effect explosion. There's another one where whatever, they're just dropping poison everywhere. There's another where you drop poison everywhere, and they've got a lot of cool stuff like that. That meaning in the honeymoon phase, I'm like, okay, the nightmare dungeon twists are still interesting enough that I'm kind of like, well, it's just a dungeon, but it's interesting, or it's really hard all of a sudden. Yeah. But that's like most of what I'm doing, because I don't want to do the Legion events. So you're already out of those 2. There's only one thing I want to do. I don't want to do side quests. Respect to side quest designers and like the folks who really enjoy that. I think that's cool. But they're pretty like, they tend to be fetch quest type stuff. You go and you go out to part of the world, you pick something up or fight some enemies. And like for me personally, as a grind person, I guess I'm not as interested, so I'm not going to do that. And I can't replay like moments of the campaign. You cross paths in like dungeons and stuff, but like as far as I know, right, like that's a big missing piece. Is I'd love to just grab a chapter as a tiered event, and do that quest part again. Like the end of the game, like I've only seen it once. I have to build a whole new character if I want to see it. But
are you doing any Helltide stuff?
But yeah, and then that was the other piece that I was leading to. I do Helltide because it's really rewarding. I don't mind the gameplay as a refresher. And Helltide, again, right, is like, it's a timed thing in a region that's all, red that you go into with tons of, there's slightly harder enemies. and events happening at maybe a faster clip, and you have to extract, your resource out of there, into a chest to get these rewards. And you also have to find the chest, but there's some tools online that people are sharing where they're at to make it easier. And my point is, it's all right. I like the loot, but I actually don't love that. And then, then there's PvP as well. PvP is a whole other topic and problem where it's fun and all until there's like a level 93 PvP player that's just there to whoop you. And I'm like, the good news is if you die, like, it's not a big deal. But it's like, I don't think I'm going to be doing PvP unless I build a specific character for it. So it's a miss in that sense. I can't just do some PvP for fun. At least I haven't yet. I go there for gold,
Yeah. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of reward for it either, to be fair. Like, I guess if you do become that marked person after you've killed a whole bunch of people in that part of the server, I suppose you get something really cool from that. I mean, I do like the fact you don't take any damage in terms of like having to repair your gear for that. If you fight,
exactly.
Which is great.
Low risk.
I do like that a lot. I do like the extract stuff though in that space. So with the seeds that you wind up getting.
Yeah.
I think that is an interesting dynamic for a game that's like this, because it feels like the Division Dark Zone stuff. You know what I mean? Where you're like, if I can get this stuff out, this is a resource that I care about and can get some cool stuff from it. But I also might get wrecked because somebody might just come over and just try to fight me. Yeah, it's kind of cool in that respect. I do like that part a little bit, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. Like I said, it's low risk. It's fun, when I did it. But I felt like anytime I tried to extract, like, I don't mind getting in a fight. It's that it was completely outmatched the times I tried it. Yeah. There's a pro tip out there I hear that if you turn off crossplay, it can maybe make things easier for you if you like want to do that. But like, I don't want to have to game the system to have a fair match. And I guess that's my point. But I haven't played enough PvP to really like feel one way or another. But I'm pretty sure you're going to need to make a specific build. And therein lies if you're making a build and you're not getting into PvP, it's kind of at odds with itself. There's no way to quickly make a PvP build. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you just sort of
totally
see how what you have does against the person that might show up that might be lower level than you if you're lucky, but probably isn't and is way above you and is going to completely destroy you. So that's my experience.
1,000%.
Right. Yep. So where I'm leading with that summary of all that stuff that's out there, and there's the Tree of Whispers too, I guess. I should have thought of that one.
Yep.
Going on getting these packages by, again, just kind of killing enemies and picking up something that you take back as reward. But my point is, out of all that, I pretty much just want to do the Nightmare Dungeons. And on its own, it's not enough to last. I haven't played, enough like Diablo Immortal. I know they do a lot of the, gacha style mobile game stuff there's like clan war stuff and other things that I was talking to one of my friends about. But it does feel like the end game is it's there. And it's a lot about this power grind for me, so it's enough to keep me going. But I feel like there's just not enough to do. So how do you feel about that?
That part is hard. It's a weird thing for me to sit back if I really am not being, a pain in the butt. Looking at the way that the development of this game has gone, looking at all the breadth and depth of stuff that's in this game that I can partake in, to be like, there isn't enough stuff for me to do. Like, there's parts of me that feel that way. I'm giving Blizzard and the Diablo team a lot of grace because I know that they have stuff that's coming. We got seasons and stuff coming too at some point. But I think that for me now, it's like, how am I kind of getting to the fun every night that I log into it? And I think right now, I'm having fun doing Nightmare Dungeons. Those are good because of the little changes to what the kind of criteria are for one of those things are. And a thing that this game does extremely well and has done since its inception is when you get that really cute little orange glow on your map, it just does that thing. You have to go look at it. You need to pick it up. You need to inspect it to see if it does what you need it to do, or the hope that it will add to your build in some kind of way. So that level of hook is just real. Like, that doesn't go away no matter what level I've been at so far. I'm looking at stuff and being like, all right, this doesn't do anything for me, but it has a purpose now. Like, I can break it down for materials. I can sell it for gold.
Yeah.
I can do all the stuff. I've been trading stuff with friends who are a little bit lower level than I am. I've been a gem maker for people at this point. Like, a friend of mine who's
just giving people some gems. That's a nice feeling.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I was like, you haven't gotten to level 4 yet. I can give you some flawless gems. I will make you some flawless gems and give them to you so you can like build up your character and do stuff like that.
Yep.
Those small things are right now what are the things that are giving me the most joy in the end game for what I'm playing.
Yeah. Yeah, so for clarity, it's not like I think the end game's bad or non-existent.
Yeah.
It's just that it's a lot of what I expected. To be fair, I've been playing a lot.
Yeah.
And I warn people a lot, coming from the Destiny community and others, that you're doing it to yourself sometimes. Like, nobody's telling you have to hit level 100 right away. In fact, the developer, Blizzard, is telling you it's going to be a pretty slow grind because there aren't a ton of things to do. So just be mindful that there's a lot that you can do with the side quests. But if you're not into it, take it slower, right? But there's this, it is a little at odds with itself. Like, a new season's coming up. We're not going to go into that, but like, you start a new character, you still have your old character and can play that character. But for some of the new activity stuff, and it remains to be seen what's there. But like, I feel this pressure of like, okay, I want to get to 100. I want to feel my build fully maximized, or at least in the 90s, and like, it's a lot to get there. And so, yeah, to that end, I mean, there's no question they need to add more things to do. Obviously, they're not talking about that stuff yet, but I do worry that I am going to burn myself out, even if to some degree it's my fault. But yeah, I worry that every week even I'm like, wait a second, is it suddenly going to hit me? And I'm like, I'm not having fun because I'm just trying to get a new unique drop, which isn't dropping or something. But so far it's been good. And let me just share what happened. I was kind of hitting a little bit of that burn, and I got uniques in the past. But then I got, it's called the Crone Staff, and I don't know if it's just for the Druid or not. But it is for the Druid only. But it just allowed me to use my skills in this sort of swap way, which is, the Druid does a lot of that. So it's like my Wolf Claw acts as a Storm Strike, so it procs 2 basic skills at once. So I was able to combine 2 things at once, which made my brain sort of light up. And again, because I hadn't looked into a lot of it, I was like, that seems cool. Let me try, And then it made me rebuild a bunch of things. It excited me. And then I got another unique drop that I was like, this is really neat. Let me add that on top of that. Without those, I sort of would just be chasing like, crit on this and getting better gear, and some of the aspects I want a better roll on. And that probably still draw me along, but definitely these unique drops and being able to change my build is keeping me going. And so it remains to be seen if that sort of pace will just sort of naturally happen. I don't know.
I hope. I mean, I think you're right about the kind of unique drop aspect of it and layer of it. I think I got a pair of arms that do frost, like will freeze an enemy now. And that changed a lot of the way I think about the way I go into a fight. And that has made some of the interactions between some of my other powers also synergize in a way that I didn't think about. My boots now leave a frost trail, but I'm now kiting people around while I do stuff to see if they'll freeze. And I hit them and then they freeze, and then it's all so now I went from being like a very much kind of brute force barbarian that was basically trying to do as much damage with bleed, where now I can do a little bit more CC, lock a couple of enemies down, do my frost thing, and then but now I'm like, can I never take these boots and these hands off now? Like, that's the part too with that winds
you get scared. You're like,
right? You're like, oh man, if I don't find a higher level version of this aspect because I can't remove it, I gotta like throw it into the vault and just. But then I've upgraded it as much as I can upgrade it, and that's not gonna really scale with me. It feels like there's an interesting space within this game where, and I think this happens with a lot of these games, where you wind up finding really cool stuff sometimes too early, and you don't know what to do with that. And I think that's a really interesting thing. I don't think any game like this has really figured out yet, in a good way. At least nothing that's coming to mind in my mind right now. But I think that's a part of the thing too, where I'm just like, this could have been the one time I ever get this drop. Will I ever get this drop again? You don't know.
Yeah, that's what's interesting is it's in there, and that's why I think overall the drop rates for regular uniques and everything, that's probably fine, because the higher you get, the higher tier, nightmare dungeons, etc. you do start to see these things. The higher level enemies you face, there's obviously got to be, I mean, I'm speculating, but there's got to be higher chances. I'm starting to see them a lot more at like 80 than I was at 70. Even though I had weird moments at 50 where I got a bunch of uniques and but maybe that was it. Maybe they gave me the taste and then they take it away. Who knows what they're doing in the background, or if it's just kind of a little like coding bug type situation. But there's enough to draw me along that I'm like, this is really neat. I have less desire to like start a new character or play hardcore, and
Sure.
that's different kind of thinking, I think, for people who really want to dive deep into Diablo. And but for now, I'm good. I like I said, I'm a little worried about the burnout, so I hope season 1 brings enough interest, even though it feels like it's not going to let me sort of complete my current character if I'm not done on time. But you know, again, a topic for later. But so yeah, you have no plans to stop right now? Nothing standing in your way, or you sort of like got a plan? You're only in for the next few weeks, and then you're out.
As soon as we finish this podcast, I'm logging back in. I was playing.
There we go. I took him away from Diablo.
No, before we started the podcast, I was playing, and I was like, all right, I literally bum rushed through a dungeon before we started, so I'd make sure that I was ready to be able to jump on the show. And as soon as we finish up today, I'm going right back after it, because I got to figure if that world boss is there, and 2, I got, again, that grind to like getting up to that next level, getting those Paragon points. It is the thing that is driving all of my play at this point. I want to see what that next board is going to be. I don't even know yet. Like I'm like, how do I get on my glyphs leveled up? Like there's so much stuff in that layer to do that I'm thinking about. So it's ruined my life and my marriage and my family.
Right. Exactly. Well, you love to hear it. But no, like that's the best part about the end game for sure, is the build crafting and getting those dopamine hits, etc. So I think all that's great, and I'm definitely having a good time, and we'll kind of see where it goes. I'm gonna let you get back to it, unless you have any final things you wanted to share on the game or anything.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always a blast to get to rock with you. You know, I'm a big fan of your work. I've been for a very long time.
I'm a fan of your work. Watch this, man.
Oh, you stop it. And excited to see, you know, how more of these conversations are going to wind up going. I'll be listening and cheering you on. But again, I think this is good. This is a thing that is going to be probably for a long time. Like I'm forecasting, looking at the rest of the games that are coming out for the rest of this year, and this will be a mainstay. Like I've fallen off Zelda. I'll get back to Zelda at some point.
So when Starfield comes out, you telling me you don't think you worried about that one, or no?
I think that's why this is in my go to bed game category, right? Like it is the thing
more like should go to bed but didn't. It's a problem for morning Kah problem.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I mean until I'm back in the workforce, I'll be.
Oh, that's right. That's true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Unemployed.
More
Kah,
flexible.
Totally different. Yeah. Like when I have
that's
a job,
why you said it.
I'll probably still be up to 2 o'clock in the morning playing games.
Fair.
It is a thing now where I'm just like, oh man, if I can get that next layer of stuff and get to those next layers, it feels really good. And it is that one moment where you do find that synergy of all those powers. It is the Captain Planet, let our powers combine kind of thing, right? And once that hits, it just feels really, really good. So I'll be playing a ton of it. I'm excited to see how Steven's seasons are going to go.
Yeah,
because I've never played a season before in Diablo,
me neither.
So I have nothing to go off of. I am not excited as much about building a new character for that. So
new players say that a lot.
New conversation,
right? The longer topic for later.
But I'm so invested. Like it is something I'm thinking about all the time.
Yeah, we need to hear more from Blizzard what it actually is. But yeah, season 1 will have some new like aspects to build out with, but they do want everybody on a level playing field, and that's just what ARPGs do with seasons, I guess, which I haven't participated in either. So I'm definitely don't knock it till you try it. As much as I want to make sure I get to level 100 on my druid, and I don't want to work 2 jobs, as I put it. So let's see where this goes. But I'm with you. I'm going to keep playing Diablo 4 and keep grinding. So
no doubt.
Thanks for being on the show. I'm going to let you go and get back to grinding Diablo while I talk about more Diablo news.
I'll see you at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Please.
We'll be playing again.
That's right.
Sometime soon.
Kah does his own show, podcast, etc. Can you plug that stuff real fast? Where to find you? All that?
Yeah, check out the Spawn on Me podcast. We're celebrating our 10th year of making content this year, going strong and continuing to make it happen. Spawnies 3 will be dropping in January of 2024, so we're working towards that with our
award show. Right? Yeah,
celebrating underrepresented developers within the space. And you can check out our show. We're on all podcast platforms. Usually drop a new show every Monday morning at 6 a.m. PST, so we can catch the East Coasters on their way to work. And you can check out our latest where we had Jordan Miner on the show, who was talking about his video game of the year, which was a really fun a book that he just wrote, chronicling everything from 1977 until present. Every game he
Dang.
thought was awesome. It's a wild book for him to write because he wasn't born until like the 80s. So, but it's great. It's,
Good researcher.
It's a really good book. So check that stuff out.
Awesome.
Check out the show.
All right, cool. Well, have fun with your Diablo grind. I'm going to get back to the rest of the news. We'll catch you later, Kah. Take care. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
All right, everybody. I'm going to switch over to the rest of the news. If you didn't catch it, let me know if you have any questions about what we were talking about. But I do want to focus on the news and the patch stuff that we didn't get to talk about yet. So, again, that was Kahlief Adams, or Spawn on Me. Please go support him. Spawn, if you're in chat, or if somebody can link his Twitch channel in here, and anything else, please do. Don't hesitate or be shy about that. But yeah, so a little bit of news for you for Diablo 4. If you did miss it, again, what we said during the interview there, Diablo 4 is Blizzard's fastest selling game ever. We'll know that because they said it was. They didn't say how many, but World of Warcraft Shadowlands had sold 3.7 million copies very quickly. You know, again, fastest selling, not best selling. And we're sort of speculating that it's probably 4 or 5 million copies, but who's to say? Will Blizzard release numbers on how many people are playing and what the sales are? We may know because the month is closing. We'll get some sales data out there. So we'll see. But let's talk about one of the biggest topics before I get to all of the patch stuff. There is a bunch of patch stuff in terms of, you know, upgrading your XP when you get into Nightmare Dungeons and all this other stuff, which we'll cover again. But first, I want to cover a hot topic in the news, which is the ultra rare uniques. If you don't know about these, the lead class designer, Adam Jackson, had tweeted about them, confirming they're real because that's how rare they are, with how many players at least are eligible to receive them. And so what they are, they're very rare uniques that can drop from level 85 enemies or above. You can get them anywhere that you can get a regular unique, and they will always drop at 820 item power. Blizzard currently has 6 of them in the game, and again, they are really rare, with several L's in really, according to the lead class designer. What we don't know is their actual rarity, and I would just caveat this with, like, I don't know how many people are in the 70s, 75s, you know, in groups that can handle getting enough 85 plus enemies to drop. So I think, you know, with a grain of salt, obviously they're really rare. What does that mean? People out there, the drama right now is like, I'm never going to get these. This is dumb. Blizzard needs to get its act together. Like, you know, I'm checking out Twitter and Reddit on that stuff. And like, you may be right about it, but there's a select group of people that are grinding a ton that have obviously not gotten these. But yeah, they're a certain kind of rare, obviously. You know, some games, you know, you run a dungeon 100 times and it's got a 5% chance drop. So if it's RNG, remember that you're not guaranteed within 20 times to get it. Some people get it within 20 runs, and other people, you know, it takes them 400 runs and so on. But you can't really target this stuff because there's a lot of loot out there too. So we'll see. My thoughts on the matter are it needs to play out a bit longer. Blizzard is listening. It's early. I think it's good that there's really powerful, ultra rare stuff that makes you feel really special when you get it. But how limited is it going to be? Because, you know, it's one thing to walk away from a grind because, like, you're just kind of done playing it and you didn't get the good stuff. And it's another thing to be like, I'm just not going to grind for these because I'm not going to get them. And so you walk away because you're frustrated, but not unfairly. You know, these may be meant that it's in season 2 you've been playing. You finally got one. And it remains to be seen. Let me know in the comments or the Twitch chat what you think on this matter. But a lot of people are pissed, so I already know that. But a real quick summary of what they are. So these 6 really rare uniques are a Doombringer, which is a one-handed sword. And that is a lucky hit, up to 25% chance to deal shadow damage to surrounding enemies, and it reduces their damage by 20 seconds. By 20% for 5 seconds. That's the Doombringer one-handed sword. There's a Grandfather two-handed sword that will increase your crit strike damage up to 100%. That's double for those paying attention. So it's a huge crit strike damage increase for sure if you get that one. Ring of Starless Skies. It's a ring. Could you guess? But each consecutive core skill you cast reduces the resource cost of your net core skill by up to 12%. And that is up to a maximum of 40% that you can get it to consecutively cast up to and get. So that's basically saving your core skill resource if you're doing a lot of that. And that's a lot of what I do, so I'm very interested in that one. But there's a lot of ways in the game to tackle that. There's Andariel's Visage, which is a helm, and that's a lucky hit as well. And that's up to a 20% chance within lucky hit to trigger a Poison Nova that applies poisoning damage over 5 seconds in the area. Then there's the much talked about Harlequin Crest, which you gain 20% damage reduction and +4 to all your skills. And apparently this harkens back to in Diablo 2, there was this item. It shares some similarities to that, and that was also apparently quite rare at the time, which is why I think a lot of people are speculating, as they are. And the 6th very rare unique item, ultra rare, as many are calling them, is the Melted Heart of Selig. And that is an amulet where you'll gain 30% maximum resource when you take damage. Oh, sorry. You gain 30% maximum resource, and when you take damage, it will drain somewhere between 8 to 3 of that resource for every 1% of life that you would have lost instead. So basically, right, when you take damage, you get more resource, but then if you would have lost some life, it's kind of cutting into that resource as a lifesaver from what I can tell. So some survivability on that one. So yeah, 6 really ultra rare uniques. They're really rare. If you get them, share them with the world because they are that rare. Doombringer, Grandfather, Ring of Starless Skies, Andariel's Visage, Harlequin Crest, and the Melted Heart of Selig. All right, let's move on to the patch notes. And if you're live here on Twitch, we do get a 30-second ad break coming up. I've snoozed as many of them as I possibly can. They're only 30 seconds, but we're just going to take a quick water break anyway, and hopefully that you're back as we get things started here. If you got any questions in chat, please let me know. One-man show. I think I've been talking for 1 hour straight, so thank you for listening in, everybody. So again, to sort of just recap, and then we'll get into the specifics. There's been a ton of fixes, but the big details are that the Endgame XP and the loot is getting boosted in a few ways as part of today's patch. It's already out. It's on June 27th. All classes got a bunch of buffs. Some of those changes that Blizzard sort of recognized was that basic skills just don't feel impactful enough, and they hope that this is going to smooth things out. Blizzard is still working on increasing the monster and elite density of the endgame content because people are feeling like not enough is there, and they plan to introduce this change early in Season 1. But yeah, let's go over what these big XP and endgame changes are. So, big one. Players can now teleport directly to the dungeon. I already tested it. It works just like a waypoint. So your Nightmare dungeons, when you use that sigil, they become a waypoint. Click on it, go, you're there. That is going to be such a nice quality, or it is a nice quality of life upgrade. Significantly, they have increased the experience that's awarded for doing Nightmare dungeons. If you're like me, I like the challenge. I do not want to beat my head against the wall and just grind the same low tier, every enemy explodes in front of me for the XP level. It will burn me out. And there's no shame in doing it if you like doing it, if you're not concerned about that. But I want to play the harder difficulty and have a higher chance of these unique rewards. And now I'm going to get more experience from that. Whether or not you get more from later Nightmare, like higher Nightmare tiers, I don't know. I don't know if they've commented on that specificity yet. Significantly increased the experience gained from killing monsters in Nightmare dungeons. So as well, obviously, within this whole thing for completing, you also got to get it from just killing the monsters. Some people do try their grinds of just kill the elites and restart the dungeon, but, I think they want you to finish the whole thing. End of the day, it's all XP per hour, right? So whatever's most fun, most enjoyable. In Helltide, the chests now provide substantially more bonus experience when opened, and Helltide roaming bosses will now more consistently drop higher tier quality loot. Blizzard has also significantly increased the reward experience from completing individual whispers across the board. So again, there's all those whisper activities, which quite frankly, I haven't been doing that much. It is a good solid grind for getting more targeted gear. You know, maybe you're getting a gauntlet cache or you're getting a chest cache, etc. It is a good rewarding grind, but it was definitely too slow. I would do the world boss and just major stuff, and when it popped, it popped, but you could not find me chasing that stuff. So hopefully this is a welcome change. Again, they've significantly increased the rewarded experience for completing those individual whispers. So actually, sorry, I read that wrong at first. That's just the experience. But maybe because if you're getting more experience from that stuff, you'll be more compelled to do that instead of just nightmare dungeons. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I think I got to kind of compare those two experiences. Like basically you can go do like a cellar. You can clear a little area on the map. I mean, the variety would be nice if the XP is reasonable compared to a nightmare dungeon. And the unique drops are reasonable, and they very well may be. So it's all time versus that. And they did fix the weekly caches. If you made it to World Tier 4, they were set to level 80, I believe, for most people. And you couldn't open them. I got to level 80, so I was able to open them. So I didn't get to confirm that this works today. But if you're sitting on a bunch of caches, you might as well just open them. So that's sort of the overview, the most important stuff. I'm going to very quickly dive into the per class stuff. Quite frankly, there's a lot of stuff in here. And because I don't play every class, I don't know actually if I want to read through every, last detail. So I'm going to cherry pick a few things. If you're in chat and saw anything that you thought was big in terms of buffs, let me know. Otherwise, check out the full update. But a couple examples in the Barbarian tree. Frenzy, the base damage was increased from 20% to 2%. The double swing, the base damage was increased from 36% to 40%. The leap, the mighty leap slow has been increased from 50% to 70%. So again, what I wanted to illustrate here is there's a lot of buffs, and some of them are small changes, others are big. So there's a few from the Barbarian tree. I'm looking at the Bounding Slam, which the base damage was increased 75% to 112%. And there's just a lot more stuff in there, and all of it, for the most part, I believe all of it is a buff. Okay, so check those out. That was Barbarian. So for the Druid, which I play, I can react to this a little more clearly. But let's see. As an example, I'm using the Claw right now, which is the wolf basic attack. And it's going to generate more spirit. Instead of 10, it's 11. That's a 10% buff, by the way. Base damage has been increased from 20% to 22%. Again, that's a 10% buff. Something like your Cataclysm, which is one of the ultimates. The base damage has been increased from 52% to 64%. Pretty big buff on that one. Passive changes. Let's see. Nature's Fury. The chance to cast a free spell has been increased from 20% to 30%. So again, just illustrating, that's a 50% buff. So some pretty big swings in these changes. I'm going to pick a few from Necromancer, which I haven't had a chance to play at all. But Bone Splinters, base damage has been increased from 8% to 9%. Again, the numbers sound small, but 1% of 8% is quite a bit. It's probably 12 or 13% or something like that. Essence generated from those Bone Splinters has gone up from 6 to 7. Let's see what else we got in here. The Bone Prison, the cooldown has been reduced from 20 seconds to 18 seconds. Corpse Tendrils, Blight Corpse Tendril chance to spawn a Blood Orb increased from 30 to 35%. So you see, again, a lot going on in here in terms of buff. Let's pick a few from the Rogue real fast. The Invigorating Strike, the base damage has been increased from 23% to 25%. The Forceful Arrow has been increased from 20% to 22%. Some of its passives, like Close Quarters Combat, that got a huge buff. From the damage bonus has been increased from 20% to 30%. Again, that's a big buff to damage. That's 50% increase of what that is available there. And lastly, a few for Sorcerer. Let's see. The Frostbolt, the base damage has come up from 35% to 38%. Charge Bolt base damage has been increased from 28% to 30%. I have played a little Sorcerer in the beta. Let's see. Crackling Energy, the base damage has been increased from 15% to 20%. That's a major, sort of spark arc build component, I believe, for Sorcerer. So that's again a pretty big bump. This is a lot of bumps, everybody. I mean, I could just go on, and everything you look at, all the characters are getting more power. And that's the point. So the patch is out. There's a bunch of other like bug fixes and all that. If I missed anything huge you want me to touch on before we close the podcast right now, let me know. But I appreciate everybody coming through. This was my first swing at kicking through a podcast. It actually went a lot longer than I planned. Really just wanted to talk to Kahlief, have a conversation with some people playing Diablo 4 right now and talk about what's big. But we also got these patch notes, just so happens, on the same day. So it all worked out. And I think that's going to be it for this show. Just for clarity, this is a limited series. Like, I'm just Twitch streaming right now. And if you like this, share it with someone. That's the best thing you can do. Say, hey, if you like this, check it out. Leave a comment. I'm going to get it posted on YouTube and some of the other social channels. But share that stuff. That will be big. And we'll come back. I'll definitely do more. So follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/FM3_. My name's Fran Mirabella. I don't think I introduced myself, but my name's been up the whole time if you don't know me. But yeah, you can find Fran Mirabella pretty easily on Twitter, Instagram, etc. as well. But yeah, on Twitch, I'm FM3_, because you can't have 3 characters very easily. So thanks for joining in. I'm going to go back and get to playing Diablo. Thanks everybody who's watching live. And drop a follow, set a live notification if you want to come back and get more Diablo news. But I'm going to go back to grinding Diablo. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'll see you next time.